as the steamboat geyser at Yellowstone has erupted for a 10th time. It did so about a week and maybe a half ago, but I was waiting to see how long it would take the mainstream media to put out a report about it, and it took them around a week and a half. So there's a clear delay between the events happening at Yellowstone and when they're being reported in the mainstream media. So prior to this, it had only spat water 10 times in 3 decades, that's 30 years, and it's done so in the last 3 months. So there's clearly more activity at Yellowstone. Whether that means there's an eruption imminent, we don't know, but there has been seismic activity and ground deformation. Those are two other things you look at when, looking at whether a volcano's going to erupt. Another thing would, be animal activity, and that's something I haven't really heard anything about yet. So, don't think anything's imminent, but there's clearly a sign that Yellowstone is more unsettled than usual, which is a reason to pay attention. The Syrian government did launch their offensive on southwestern Syria as expected. Syrian government helicopters have pressed on an assault on opposition-held areas of the country's southwest, dropping barrel bombs in defiance of US demands that President Bashar al-Assad halt the offensive. The barrel bombs on Friday targeted a cluster of rebel-held towns, including Busra al-Harir, northeast of Dera city, where the attack threatens rebels holding ground jutting northwards into land held by the government. Syria's army has been pushing a week-long assault on the area bordering Jordan and the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, which Assad has sworn to capture, threatening the escalation zone agreed upon by the US and Russia last year. And then the US kind of responded. More than rhetoric, the US coalition has bombed the Syrian army Arab positions in southern Syria tonight. That was yesterday. The National Defense Forces reported. Actually, it was yesterday, meaning Friday, because it's now 1:45 in the morning on Sunday, the 24th of June. According to the report, the US coalition bombed the Syrian Arab army's outpost in the village of Al-Haba, which is 70 kilometers away from the historical city of Palmyra. A Syrian Arab army commander told Sputnik news agency tonight that the combat planes belonging to the coalition, led by the United States, attacked the army position in Jabal Ghurab, some 150 kilometers east of Palmyra, near the border with Iraq. One serviceman was killed and several others wounded. The attack was allegedly carried out when the Syrian army responded to the US coalition's forces firing several shots at their troops. And then you've got Israel following the US, well, at least temporarily reducing its participation with the UN human rights body. Obviously, this is coming as there's a lot of issues with Israel and the way that they're dealing with the Palestinians on the Gaza border. Yeah, it seems as if there's a lot of treaties and deals being broken at the moment, ties being severed in places where you wouldn't expect them to. So it's really interesting to see all of this developing, because it's kind of, there's like one key point, which is it seems to be focusing around the USA and Israel in terms of separation and kind of isolation, at least on the world stage. So we see some activity in terms of North Korea as well, with Trump renewing sanctions on North Korea, saying that they're still an extraordinary threat and they still pose a nuclear threat. This is after he was saying, sleep well, everything's fine. It's a little bit concerning because obviously we don't know what really goes on in the background, and what the reason would be for Donald Trump to suddenly switch his perspective on how potentially dangerous North Korea is. I mean, you just have to go back on YouTube and see him saying there was no more threat, sleep well, how they got along so well, Kim Jong-un's this and that. But it seems as if there's something going on that has caused that to reverse. US President Donald Trump extended sanctions against North Korea for 1 year, saying the country still posed an extraordinary threat, despite insisting just days earlier that Pyongyang was no longer a nuclear threat to the US. The sanctions which were renewed on Friday, were originally introduced under an executive order originally put in place in 2008 after his talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Singapore on June 12th. Trump had said that sanctions would not be lifted on Pyongyang until further progress was made on its denuclearization. According to reports, there's been no signs of denuclearization on North Korea's part. And obviously they've met for the third time with Xi Jinping in Beijing, talking about, God only knows what. But this is obviously, I've mentioned, is coming at the same time as there's a trade war between the US and China, and it's possible that China could use North Korea as leverage in that trade negotiation. How? We have our suspicions, but obviously with China stealing submarine secrets, and recently a Chinese official being arrested for apparently handing over naval secrets to the Chinese. So it's interesting, all that's going on. And then you've got, coming up on June 27th, the Rimpac exercise, which is a huge exercise. 26 nations participating, 47 surface vehicles, 5 submarines, and 18 national land forces, as well as more than 200 aircraft and 25,000 personnel. And obviously, I've reported on this before, but the time is coming up for it to begin in 3 days' time. A lot of ships out in the ocean there, right next to Hawaii, where the volcano is. The potential for, as I keep saying, some form of detonation inside of the volcano, potentially causing a tsunami, could wipe out all those ships. It's a far-fetched scenario, I'll just admit that, but it's still possible, because anything's possible. And with everything being in such a nice key place, and China having naval secrets that they've stolen, and having chats with North Korea who haven't shown any signs of denuclearization, Donald Trump just suddenly switching his opinion on how dangerous North Korea are and extending those sanctions. It could be, and also that connects to the Bible as well, obviously. A third of the ships are destroyed. It doesn't say a third of the ships in the world are destroyed, but that's a lot of ships, and they could be destroyed by a potential wave caused by something else, which I've already mentioned. So the US Navy Nimitz-class aircraft USS Carl Vinson, that's another vessel I've talked about a lot in past videos, has sailed from San Diego to participate in the International Maritime Exercise. CVN 70 features a crew of 5,000 sailors and is set to join a fleet of naval vessels in order to participate in a variety of training events, both on shore and at sea. USS Carl Vinson Commanding Officer Captain Matthew Paradise said, "This is a chance for us to showcase what we do and strengthen relationships with our international partners. There are a lot of opportunities to build camaraderie." We can only wait and see. Obviously, we can't stop anything like that, but I'll just keep your eyes open on that one. Then you've got 2 days later, Prince William travelling to Israel on the 27th of June. Hold on. No, he's 2 days earlier, sorry. He's travelling on the 25th. So Prince William is set to make history as the first British royal to officially visit Israel and Palestine. But when is the Duke of Cambridge Middle East trip? So the Duke of Cambridge 4-day visit has been made at the request of the government but is non-political. His communications secretary, Jason Knopf, said it would enable a spotlight to be brought to bear on the people of the region, their cultures, their young, their aspirations and their experiences. Obviously, you guys know what I think about the royal family, particularly Prince William and Prince Harry. I do believe that they are part of the Antichrist system, and this first official visit to Israel from any royal is significant, biblically significant, I think. So again, another one to keep your eyes on. Actually, it says here from the 24th of June to 28th, so that would be today. Sunday. So he's either already traveling there, or he's going to be there, or is there already. I'll see what BBC is saying later. And then one thing I wanted to just quickly talk about, because I know it's a contentious issue, but I don't shy away from contentious issues, is the border and the immigration issue. As you can see, I brought up an image of how inventive human beings can be when they want to do something. Anything a human can build, another human can outbuild, if you want to say. It happens all the time. Software, hackers, company creates software, put securities in place, hackers get past it, they put more securities in place, hackers get past it. It's a tit for tat, it keeps on going. It's the same with the border wall. You build a wall, people are going to find a way over it. If they're desperate to get over it, they will get over it. So it's not really, it might slow things down, but it's not going to stop it. So what do you really do? Well, the issue isn't the people that are migrating. If you think about it, these people are migrating from countries that are suffering economically. They've got drugs and they've got gangs, and in some cases they bring their baggage with them, but in a lot of cases they're just trying to escape a horrible situation and make a better life. Now, if you manage to escape that country, say for example Guatemala, which is, according to reports, is where a lot of these migrants are coming from, and you manage to make it thousands of miles and you get to the border, you then have to contend with coyotes and I can't, what's the other, forgotten it, smugglers, that's the one. So you have to contend with those, and obviously if you get caught, I believe the situation there is that you have to pay those people in order to deliver you safely across the border, whether you want their help or not. If you don't pay, then if you have a daughter, she can be taken and put into prostitution, for example. If you have a son, he can be taken and put into the gang. The wife can be, beaten and raped, and the father can be killed. If you, as a family or as a mother and child, manage to escape the situation in Guatemala and escape the smugglers and the coyotes and make it across the border, you've then got the immigration to deal with. If you try and do it legally, that's fine, but according to all the reports, even from the own government, the legal ports of entry are overwhelmed with migrants. And if you're in a situation where you have to stay on the other side of the border, where you could potentially be snatched up by smugglers or coyotes, the other option you've got is to try and get across illegally. Now, I'm not saying that's right, and I don't have a problem with a wall. Lots of countries have walls, but lots of countries also tell you it doesn't stop illegal immigration. It helps a little bit, but as you can see from the picture, people are determined. If people are determined, they'll find a way. So the real solution is to fix the problem at the root. You don't just keep on, chopping away at the top, expecting a different thing, because it's gonna be the same. You need to solve the root of the problem. So you may not want to help, but you have to think about it. If you help Guatemala stabilize their situation, then that stabilizes your situation. Because if you think about it, no country that is prosperous and doing very well has a problem with people fleeing their country and going to another one. It's when you're in a country that is suffering economically, or you've got war, you've got drugs, you've got gangs, you've got some sort of problem that you're trying to escape, that's when migration becomes a problem into whatever neighboring country is there. For example, in Syria, the war is happening there, and you've got thousands of migrants that have fled Syria into the neighboring countries that surround it. And what these other countries have done, from the looks of it, is they haven't, penalized the migrants themselves. What they've done is they've gone into the country where the problem is and attacked it. And obviously, in the grand scheme of things, it's all part of the plan, but that's pretty much the only way to solve a migration issue. Stop it at the root, You no longer have the problem that people are fleeing from. You no longer have a problem at the border. It's pretty simple. So you guys, thank you for listening and entertaining my thoughts. Just wanted to bring that to you. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and God bless.